Amid scorching deserts and snow-capped mountains lies a nation once at the heart of the great Persian Empire. Now heavily sanctioned, economically battered, and socially restrained by strict laws. Iran, a country where an iPhone can cost more than several months' salary medicine, is a privilege, and internet access is a luxury. But within this same country, young people still find ways to dance in secret. And women hidden behind headscarves continue to raise their voices with quiet defiance. Step inside Iran and witness the everyday lives of those navigating a world shaped by isolation sanctions and a deep yearning for freedom. Number 1. Iran's political geography. Sitting between the Persian Gulf, the Caspian Sea, and a wall of rugged mountain ranges, Iran stretches wide across the heart of the Middle East. It covers more than 1,600,000 square kilometers. A land shaped by deserts, valleys, snowy peaks, and ancient cities that still whisper stories from thousands of years ago. In 2025, Iran's population is closing in on 90 million. It's a country not only large in land, but full of human layers, ethnicities, languages, and traditions. But not everything is on display. Beneath the surface, one cultural force continues to shape public and private life: Shia Islam. It dictates what people wear, how they interact, what is taught in schools, and even what music can be played in public. For many Iranians, religion isn't just a belief system. It's the backdrop to life, setting the tone for family dynamics, legal structures, and even daily greetings. You feel it in the rhythm of the day, in the way people speak, and in the expectations placed on both men and women. Still, what makes Iran so compelling is the constant push and pull between old and new. In cities like Tehran, it's common to see young developers coding mobile apps while navigating firewalls and censorship. Not far away, elderly poets sip tea in quiet cafes, reciting verses that are centuries old. Tradition and innovation live side by side, often in tension, but always with energy. And all of this unfolds under enormous external pressure. Iran has been under international sanctions for decades, and as of this year, it remains one of the 5 most sanctioned countries in the world. These restrictions impact everything: oil exports, foreign investments, banking access, even basic supplies like medicine and electronics. Daily life for many Iranians has become a balancing act between resilience and survival. What's even more striking is the age of the population. Over 60% of Iranians are now under 35 years old. That means a majority of the country has never known life without sanctions, without censorship, or without watching their economy shrink under pressure. It's a generation raised in tension, but still dreaming and still creating despite it all. Number 2. The harshest punishment in the world. These pressures aren't just background noise, they shape every corner of daily life. Over the past 4 decades, sanctions have come in waves. But in recent years, they've struck deeper, harder, and more broadly than ever before. One of the most damaging sanctions hits where it hurts most: oil. Iran owns one of the largest proven oil reserves in the world. In theory, it should be a wealthy nation, rich in energy exports. But in reality, much of that oil sits untapped or rerouted through back channels, often sold at steep discounts to a few remaining buyers like China. The result: billions of dollars in lost revenue, frozen assets abroad, and a government forced to fund its operations through shadow systems and shrinking resources. But the pain doesn't stop there. The banking system has been all but cut off from the outside world. Iranian banks are locked out of the SWIFT network that's the backbone of international finance. It means international wire transfers are nearly impossible. Families can't easily send or receive money from abroad. Businesses struggle to import basic goods from machine parts to food staples. Even paying for foreign textbooks or renewing a website domain becomes a complicated, expensive task. And then there's technology, or rather the lack of it. Sanctions ban the export of high-tech component software and security infrastructure to Iran. That includes everything from advanced medical scanners and lab equipment to secure cloud services and app development tools. Many hospitals are forced to run outdated machines. Engineers and students turn to pirated software and unstable VPNs just to learn, build, or communicate with the outside world. These restrictions don't only target institutions, they filter down into everyday moments. When a job offer abroad falls through because banking is blocked. A startup idea never lifts off because key tools are inaccessible. It's not a system anyone chooses. It's a system people endure and somehow survive. Number 3. Currency depreciation. And if sanctions are the walls closing in, the economy is the floor crumbling beneath people's feet. Over the past few decades, the Iranian rial has lost almost all of its value. We're not talking about a simple devaluation. We're talking about a collapse. Back in the late 1970s, $1 was worth around 70 rials. Today, in 2025, it takes over 40,000 rials. And on the black market, even more just to buy a single US dollar. That's not just inflation. That's economic erosion. As the rial sinks, prices skyrocket. Basic groceries like rice cooking oil eggs have doubled or tripled in just a few years. Families now spend most of their income just to cover food and rent. What about imported goods? Almost out of reach. A basic laptop or smartphone, even a used one, can cost the equivalent of several months' wages. And let's not even talk about medicine, which is both scarce and expensive. This inflation crushes the middle class, once the pride of Iranian society. Many who used to live comfortably now find themselves rationing electricity, skipping meals, or selling belongings to get by. For those already poor, life slips closer to the edge. And unemployment adds another layer of pressure. In some provinces, especially outside Tehran, joblessness among young people is estimated to be over 40%. Even highly educated Iranians, such as engineers, teachers, doctors, often work multiple side jobs just to survive. Ride-hailing apps, underground freelance gigs, small street vending stalls. These have become survival tools for an entire generation. The government, meanwhile, struggles to keep up. It prints more money, raises taxes, and makes promises, but people aren't fooled. Trust in official numbers is low, and many have given up waiting for help. Still, daily life doesn't collapse all at once, it erodes quietly. Prices rise, wages stay flat, and the national currency keeps shrinking in value. For many, the formal economy no longer offers stability or even access. And when the official system stops working for ordinary people, they start looking elsewhere. They turn to the only economy that still functions, the one that runs underground. Number 4. Black market. In today's Iran, the black market isn't some shadowy corner of society. It is the economy for millions. Everything the formal system can't provide, like dollars, euros, medicine, car parts. Even diapers flows through unofficial channels. You need foreign currency. You find a street exchanger, not a bank. You can't get cancer treatment drugs in the pharmacy. Someone knows someone who smuggled some in from Turkey at 5 times the price. It's not just about survival. It's about bypassing a system that's locked too many people out. Gasoline, once heavily subsidized, is now traded unofficially in border regions. Tech equipment comes in piece by piece through suitcases from Dubai or Armenia. Whole industries operate in legal gray zones, from online freelancing using fake IP addresses to import-export businesses that exist only on encrypted messaging apps. Even skilled workers often work off the books to avoid taxes surveillance, or simply because official jobs don't pay enough to live on. The line between legal and illegal is no longer moral, it's practical. If the state can't provide, people will find a way. But this shift comes at a heavy cost. The deeper the black market roots itself into everyday life, the more fragile the official economy becomes. With so much trade happening off the books, the government loses vital tax revenue. Rules and oversight begin to fade, replaced by informal deals and quiet handshakes. For the average citizen, this doesn't just mean inconvenience. In Iran today, navigating daily life is less about what's allowed and more about what's possible. And more what's possible doesn't happen in daylight. Number 5. The collapse of the middle class. Perhaps the most telling casualty of Iran's long, slow collapse is its middle class, a group once seen as the backbone of society. In the decades following the revolution, the middle class grew steadily. It represented educated professionals, small business owners, teachers, engineers, civil servants. People who may not have been wealthy, but who believed in structure, hard work, and upward mobility. They believed that life could and should get better with time. Today, that belief is fading fast. The middle class is shrinking, not just statistically, but emotionally. Salaries that once covered housing, groceries, and even modest leisure now barely pay for basic necessities. Monthly rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in Tehran can cost more than a public sector worker's entire paycheck. Healthcare, once subsidized and accessible now, forces families into impossible decisions. Pay for treatment or cover the next 2 weeks of food. Professions that once carried social status, like teaching or civil engineering, no longer offer financial security. A former high school teacher now sells cigarettes from the trunk of his car. An architect with a master's degree picks up night shifts at a cousin's bakery. These aren't temporary adjustments. For many, this is the new normal. Even those with stable jobs have lost their safety net. Inflation has devoured savings. Imported goods are luxuries. Financial planning has been replaced by daily improvisation. Can we afford this today? What if the rial drops again tomorrow? But the most dangerous collapse isn't economic, it's psychological. The middle class was once a quiet force of patience and pragmatism. It believed in gradual reform, in education, in stability. Now many feel cornered, invisible, and irrelevant. They're not poor enough for state support, nor rich enough to shield themselves. They've become a squeezed, anxious class, watching their futures shrink as the cost of survival rises. Some leave the country if they can. Many more simply disconnect from politics, from activism, from the idea that anything can change. This quiet withdrawal is one of the regime's greatest shields. A hollowed-out middle class doesn't riot. It just endures bitterly and in silence. And in that silence, something is beginning to stir, especially among the young. What happens when a generation grows up knowing only pressure, but still dares to imagine something else? Stay with me. Number 6. Internet is controlled. In today's Iran, being young means living in a state of constant contradiction. More than 60% of the population is under 35, born into a system of censorship, religious control, and economic hardship. But growing up with a digital instinct. They reach for the outside world, one banned app at a time. But that reach doesn't go unpunished. Earlier this year, during the latest wave of conflict between Iran and Israel, a war fought not just with drones and jets, But deep inside cyberspace, the Iranian government did what it had done before. It turned the internet off. Fearing infiltration and digital sabotage, authorities imposed an almost total shutdown across the country. According to cybersecurity firms, Cloudflare internet traffic in Iran dropped by an estimated 97% compared to the previous week. That wasn't a glitch, it was a blackout. For millions of ordinary Iranians, it meant no access to news, no calls to family abroad, no way to know what was happening beyond their own street. In a country already choked by sanctions, this was isolation on a whole new level. Iran has good reason to be paranoid. Its nuclear facilities were once crippled by Stuxnet, the first cyber weapon designed to cause real-world destruction, widely believed to be a joint Israeli-American operation. Digital war is not a theory in Iran. It's history and its policy. But while the state cuts connections in fear, the people respond in defiance. Young Iranians now rely heavily on VPNs and encrypted tools to stay online. They pass information hand to hand, flash drive to flash drive. They build tech workarounds faster than the state can block them. This is the silent battleground no one sees. And on it, a generation lives between two firewalls, one built by the regime, the other by their will to stay connected. Number 7. Oppressed but unstoppable. But if the youth are quietly rewriting the rules of resistance online, then Iranian women are breaking them in full view. On the streets, in classrooms, and in front of cameras. Despite decades of repression, Iranian women have become the face, the voice, and the front line of the country's most powerful protest movement in recent history. It all reignited in September of the year 2022 after the death of Mahsa Jina Amini, a 22-year-old Kurdish woman who was arrested by Iran's morality police for allegedly wearing her hijab improperly. 3 days later, she died in custody. That death sparked something that hadn't been seen in Iran for decades. Protests led not by politicians or opposition groups, but by women flooding the streets and chanting 3 words that have since echoed far beyond the country's borders: woman, life, freedom. Funerals turned into uprisings. In the western city of Kermanshah, mourners at the burial of protester Minu Majidi removed their headscarves and shouted slogans against the regime. A photo of her daughter standing by her grave with a shaved head went viral and became an icon of generational defiance. These weren't isolated acts. In Tehran, Donya Rad was arrested after being photographed eating breakfast in public without a headscarf. Others filmed themselves dancing, walking freely, or burning veils. Small moments of everyday rebellion that carried extraordinary risk. And the cost has been brutal. According to the United Nations, more than 500 protesters were killed and over 22,000 people arrested during the 2022-2023 crackdowns. Many of them were women, many were teenagers. But the movement didn't die, it shifted. In early 2023, amid mounting pressure at home and abroad, Iran quietly walked back efforts to strictly enforce hijab laws. It was not a full victory, but it was proof that the regime had been forced to react. Because Iranian women are not waiting for permission. They are lawyers, doctors, athletes, artists, and now the unwilling revolutionaries of a generation raised in silence but no longer afraid to speak. Number 8. Brain drain. In 2025, Iran is experiencing one of the most severe brain drain crises in its modern history. Not just a loss of economic potential, but a hollowing out of its intellectual core. According to Iran Focus, between 2007 and 2021, approximately 150,000 to 180,000 scientists, engineers, and skilled professionals left the country. Shockingly, only 1% expressed any intention of returning compared to a global average of 7%. And the trend isn't slowing. In 2024 alone, nearly 60% of employees in Tehran's tech startups reportedly made plans to emigrate. The health sector is just as vulnerable. Each year, around 1,500 nurses leave Iran to work abroad. The problem runs deep. Even among Iran's brightest students, the desire to leave is overwhelming. Of the 86 Iranian medalists at international Olympiads in recent years, 83 have chosen to remain abroad. Why is Iran focus bluntly puts it? Corruption, nepotism, and systemic incompetence. A skilled engineer in Iran may earn the equivalent of $600 per month. A fraction of what they'd make abroad and far below the cost of a dignified life at home. This is not just a personal loss, it's a national hemorrhage. When doctors leave, hospitals suffer. When professors flee, universities shrink. When researchers emigrate, entire fields of innovation collapse. In the streets of Iran's cities, what remains is not just silence, but a broken promise. The dream of building something better with nowhere left to stand. Meanwhile, the ongoing Iran-Israel conflict has intensified both physical and digital warfare. In the shadows of bombs and drones, Iran is losing another battle, the fight to keep its best minds from slipping away. The world watches Iran through the lens of geopolitics, but inside it is intellect, not weapons, that is vanishing fastest. In the end, this is not just a question of survival. The real question is this: can a country still be itself when those who could have shaped its future are no longer part of it? Number 9. An isolated but not subdued Iran. Life in Iran does not stop, but it doesn't flow easily either. It moves slowly, deliberately through the cracks left behind by everything that no longer works. In the quiet streets of Isfahan, the scent of rice and dried limes still lingers in the evening air. Mothers stir pots over small stoves, stretching what little they have into meals that taste like memory. In Yazd, where the walls are made of mud brick, and time seems older, children still chase each other barefoot through alleyways. Their games are untouched by the headlines. And in Tehran, a city of endless tension cafes fill with students whispering about books that are banned, futures that feel impossible, and poems that somehow still say what no one dares to speak aloud. There's a rhythm to this life, a rhythm of doing the best you can with less than you need, of bartering, improvising, waiting in lines, reusing what should have been thrown away. And through it all, people hold fast to what they still have: family ritual language art. A song hummed under breath, a wedding held in secret, a verse of Hafez recited over cheap tea. These aren't just habits, they are quiet forms of defiance. In a country where so much has been taken, holding on becomes an act of survival. Iran today is a nation under siege. From outside by sanctions and isolation, from inside by repression and fear. But it is not a country that has surrendered. It has bent, yes, bruised and broken in places, but it has not disappeared. Even underground, it resists. In language, in gesture, in memory. The state can shut down the internet, but it cannot shut down imagination. It can control the streets, but not the dreams people carry through them. It can demand silence, but still the music plays. To look closely at Iran is not to see a country defeated, it is to see a country enduring. Not because it is allowed to, but because it insists on existing, on being seen, even in the dark. End. Inside the poorest, most isolated, and most sanctioned nation in the Middle East, nothing is simple. Not the struggles, not the silence, and certainly not the survival. Iran stands suspended between memory and future tradition, and defiance isolation and quiet resilience. Its people endure not because they are allowed to, but because they refuse to disappear. Behind every statistic is a voice. Behind every restriction, a dream was postponed. And beyond every sanction, a quiet insistence. We are still here. If this story moved you, if it made you pause, reflect, or simply look deeper, help us share it with the world. And don't forget, like this video and subscribe to NVL Travel Documentary for more untold stories that go far beyond the headlines.